All right, welcome everybody to the Community Economic Development Committee. First one of the year, January 9th, 2020. You want to do the roll call, man?
Yes. Mr. Weddleton?
Here.
Ms. Kennedy? Mr. Peterson?
Present.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Mr. Dunbar?
Here.
Ms. Zalatel? Here. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thanks. So let's go ahead and go around real quick. Start with Dean.
Oh, Dean Gates, City Council.
Jeff Hickman with the Anchorage Health Department.
Jake Warden, SWAT Team Solutions.
Noah Gross, Graduate School, Clearfield campus.
Jenna Waltzine, BDW Council.
Dave Whitfield, Planning.
Chris Schutte, Economic Community Development.
Colin Hodges, Planning.
Mandy Honest, Clerk's Office.
All right, thank you. Okay, so first up, welcome.
Sorry, I'm a little late.
We just started. We've got 2 marijuana applications to go through. Alaska Tasty Cannabis. So I think is that you're with Alaska Tasty Cannabis? You are. Oh, okay. Well, perfect timing then. So you're welcome. Have you been to one of our meetings before?
One of these ones?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, okay. So this is an opportunity for assembly members to discuss it with staff, and then if you have something to say, just raise your hand. We'll call on you. We'll do it that way. So we just kind of keep order that way. But you'll have a chance to address any issue that comes up. And we don't. What we often do here is vote to recommend to the assembly one way or the other on a license, but we don't make the decision. It's done at the Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
Or maybe we vote. Or we may not, but we may vote, but it's not. That's not the decision. It's just a recommendation.
Yep.
Okay, so Alaska Tasty Cannabis, Andy?
The Alaska Tasty Cannabis is a retail license and special land use application. For the license portion, this location was previously for the Rice Bowl, which had an alcohol special land use permit located on it. I talked with Ryan about that. Title 10 does not allow the co-location of an alcohol premises with a marijuana premises. He did some research with Title 21, and so he sent an email, and the change of use with non-operation of the alcohol premises means that the previous alcohol special land use permit has expired. So there's a condition number 4 on the licensing section. It can stay on there, but it has been met.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So all of the general licensing restrictions have been addressed in the operating plan. There is taxes, fees, and fines found due by one or more of the applicants. You'll see that as a condition number 3. We had one paid. I haven't heard back from about another one, so I'll double check and make sure. Okay, so I'll double check and get verification for that. All of the restricted access, security, and safety requirements have been addressed in their operating plan. The retail store specific requirements were also addressed in the operating plan. There weren't any additional comments from the health department. Their site plan was approved. They'll just have to go through their inspections and get their permits. And as I said before, there's the 2 additional conditions listed as 3 and 4, and 4 has already been met. And we'll double check on 3 and then let you know that that has been met as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Colin, you're filling in for Ryan.
Yep, Blaze in Hawaii. So this is a request for a special land use permit for a marijuana retail sales establishment within the B3 district. The site is located southeast of the intersection of Hyder on East 6th Avenue and Fairview. The establishment will be located within an existing commercial use building, which is formerly a restaurant, as mentioned, the Rice Bowl. Approximately 2,100 square feet of available building space will be dedicated to marijuana retail, and it will be open from 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to midnight. It's been granted non-conforming rights for building encroachments already present on the property, lack of landscaping as well as...
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sure. Lack of landscaping as well as separation from parking and buildings. As we just had a discussion about, there is an existing state alcohol license as of 12/13/2019 for this address. It is registered to the previous owner of the building. Per municipal code, A marijuana establishment shall not be allowed in the same establishment as a use that holds a state alcohol license. However, as was also mentioned, a change of use from restaurant to commercial marijuana was filed in November 2018, and the previous restaurant use has been out of operation for over a year. So at this time, the entire building will be devoted to a commercial marijuana use, and because there is a valid state alcohol license issued, a condition of approval, again, as was mentioned, will be that alcohol and marijuana cannot be consumed on premises or sold on premises. This use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan, provided site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of a similar character, scale, or size when compared to the surrounding structures. So the planning department recommends approval of the special land use permit, subject to the conditions as stated in the staff report. And that is it.
Very good, thank you. Forrest?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Welton. I just wanted to ask, Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask some follow-ups about the liquor license issue. So, we do this sort of dual, licensing process where we have our own SLUP and then we have a special land use permit, then we have the state license, right? But is the prohibition on co-location from municipal code or from state law?
It's municipal code, and I believe we've taken it from state as well.
That was what I was. I was under the impression there was also a state law prohibiting it. So even if our SLUP has expired, and we're saying this is not an operating, liquor license, which I totally agree with. That makes sense from our perspective. But if there is a liquor license associated with the property, how are they not in violation of state law?
Did they talk to you about that?
I tried contacting them numerous times, the old owners. No one has picked up their phones or anything.
Not the old owners, the state. I mean, I'm curious. How did this come up when you were going through AMCO? What did they say?
Well, they said to leave it up to the alcohol board because their license expired at the end of the year.
So the license expired, not just the SLUP?
Or I don't know. Something like
I
that.
believe the license is set to expire at the end of 2020.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 2-year license, and so they're done with their first. So I think that was our concern is we saw that there was still a valid liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan and I discussed the land use permit portion of it. So that was kind of the discussion of adding the condition. The understanding is that the license will expire. And so we were kind of waiting to hear from the state about that as well.
So when you purchased the building, you didn't also purchase the liquor license? Okay, interesting. All right, I mean, I think from our perspective, that's fine with me. We're achieving the public safety. I think what the justification for the restriction is you don't have these two, different things happening in the same place at the same time. I'm satisfied that we're not going to permit that. At the same time, I am curious why the state, if there is a valid state liquor license still attached to this property, why they are comfortable with this license going forward, but because it's not our issue.
I mean, I even have a written letter saying that there will be no consumption or sales of alcohol on the premises. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll let you go like this, and I'll
okay.
point you just
Sorry.
to keep the order going. It's fine. I mean, it's valuable to have that input. Just for the tape recorder, Assemblywoman Kennedy joined us moments after we started. And we have a question.
Thank you. Yeah, as I was going down toward downtown, I realized, I passed Boniface. Anyway, sorry about that. Focusing on other things. So is the license actually expired now, or it will?
It will expire.
It will. Okay. There's a lot of, I think, questions around that, and especially what the state really does, how that state considers it.
So,
Okay, Meg?
yeah, so there's this memorandum, which is really cryptic in here, from Erica McConnell to the Marijuana Control Board, page 24 of the packet. And I don't know what, it says the proposed premise for the license is located in a building in which a liquor license is currently held. I recommend that delegation include resolution of this matter. I don't know what delegation means. Delegation to the municipality, delegation to someone else, because it's to the Marijuana Control Board. So I don't know if there's an outstanding issue between, in front of the control board or not. And it's dated July 9, so it's old, or So I don't know. Do you know anything about it, Mandy?
We haven't received any other information from the state about it. And it sounds like to me, and typically how AMCO has proceeded with any kind of issues, is they will let the board be the deciding factor. I think probably in this instance, it sounds like since the license hasn't been operated, they're assuming kind of similarly that it will just expire, but if they can't get a hold of the licensee for a request to expire their license, they are kind of in a spot where they have to keep it active as well. So it may be that they're just letting the board make that decision.
Chris? Yeah, so functionally, the special land use permit expired. So there can be no alcohol operation on this premises until such a time as we would grant them a special land use permit. So from a functional perspective, the license is dead, right? Unless we were to reverse our decision, but then we would have to reverse the marijuana decision because of the code. And so I think we can proceed, allow these ideas to be clarified at the administrative level, and let the wheels turn, because there's not going to be a liquor store. There can't be. Stuff is gone. And that's where, from the municipal perspective, my history with liquor license has been the hardest thing for us to deal with is the slug or the conditional use, because that thing is like, it just doesn't die, it seems like, in so many cases. And so you have a bad operator, and a new operator could buy that place and turn it into another bad operation because of the special land use permit. So to me, that's the most important piece.
Okay, thank you. Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so, when did the state approve your license?
In July.
Right, because
That's when she wrote the letter.
she wrote July 9th, okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Crystal?
You mentioned functionally that the license is dead, but technically the license could still be transferred. The license itself could still be transferred if the owners decided to do that, correct? So it does have some life to it, right?
I think the state would allow that, yes. At this point, until the end of 2020, when it's set to expire, the state would allow a transfer.
Okay, but that wouldn't put the new establishment into any kind of bad situation.
No.
Because it all depends, like you're saying, on special land use. Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Well, they could transfer it to a no location or to a new location. It still wouldn't have an effect on this location.
Okay, so we're comfortable with this liquor license thing. Any other points on that? Dean?
Yeah, I have a question about the condition you have for the liquor license. In section 3 of the applicant required sites to be acknowledging the restriction. But you mentioned the change of use application. Yeah, it seems to make more sense to me than just a statement that they understand the law, that maybe the change of use, I guess, from an alcohol premises to a liquor premises, and completing that process has a little more, I guess, gumption to it. But is that something that we could substitute instead of just a signed statement, completing the change of use process? I mean, what's your perspective of doing something like that?
Yeah, I think so. That's fine.
Let's clarify this. So I think what you're saying is condition 7 is reword that to state the situation.
Yeah, did you want to change condition 7 or replace it?
You could just add, I suppose, I have no problem with the signed statement, but I think you could add a sentence and complete the change of use application.
Oh, I see.
Maybe not
Change of
change,
use
but get an
process.
approval to change of use.
That's my question. Did you have to go through a change of use process already? Did you have to bring the building up and make it currently applicable?
It's currently applicable.
No, but there's a change of use process that many of these operations had to already go through. Did they?
They should have gone through that. I don't know if you did or not, but you should have gone through a change of use permit formally with building safety.
It would have been very painful.
Not necessarily.
My experience.
Well, that he went through, had non-conforming rights confirmed and so on, that suggests that he went through that process, didn't he?
Potentially. Oftentimes it is caught during the building safety review, but if
if they know that if they need to get non-conforming rights to not provide landscaping, they may, or if Ryan had been working with them, then they may have just gone over to our office and submitted an application for non-conforming rights. But oftentimes it is caught during the building safety. As Chris said, I think that if you were going through a change of use, you probably would know about it. So maybe after this meeting, we can
double check
and talk about it.
Yeah, thus far I do know that it's been granted non-conforming rights for certain elements of the site, but I'm not aware of specifically the change of use process being gone through.
Okay, Crystal?
So will we in this process, or should we do anything that kind of suspends the alcohol license for this location? Do we need to officially say anything like that?
So we do have the condition 4 listed on section 2. So the license for the marijuana establishment wouldn't be issued if there was questions still. So we'll double check with AMCO, but you should probably have your board meeting soon. And the board will make that decision, and based off of that, you can go off of the board's decision.
But that's the most we can do. Okay.
Board's decision on what? I'm sorry.
On the marijuana, the state marijuana application, because they're having the same question put before them of this active liquor license being on site. Even though it's not operational, it's still there. So it sounds like from Erica's memo that the staff has put it before the board to make it their decision to allow this application and license to go through with this license still being there.
But they haven't done that. They're done, aren't they?
You have gone before the ABC or the Marijuana Control Board already?
We, in July, that's when they approved their license.
The board did?
Yeah,
And they approved it with this liquor license there?
they approved it.
Oh,
I think that's
But
what
they
the
said,
delegation letter
yeah,
is.
and then they said we're gonna leave it onto the municipalities, see what they wanna do with it.
Oh.
That was cryptic.
Right.
Said
but
that was
that's-
cryptic.
I
With the
still think that's
delegation?
what that is. No, to themselves, I'm sure. If I might, Mr. Chair, I think the delegation is to the AMCO staff. You know, once all these things are sorted out, then they can make any final approvals that they need to relative to our decision and the facts. And so that's the delegation that's in that letter. It's not to us, it's to their staff. And it's to the new guy, Glenn, worth making a call to him and just checking in.
Yeah. We can follow up with that and see where it's at with the liquor license. But that was kind of what we put as the condition, that the marijuana license can't be issued if the liquor license is there for Title 10. So,
Well, no, it kind of goes back to my question. Can we do something? Can we just do it and say it? You know, if nobody else is, can we just do it for our purposes? Especially if we decide that alcohol license is no longer valid or functionable in Anchorage right now.
so we haven't had a situation like this previously, but I believe we could notify AMCO that the special land use permit, which is required to operate, has expired.
Okay.
And therefore the license can't be operated, and then we can make that paper trail and get maybe that information verified back to us that the license is expired.
It won't be expired.
The
License expires at the end of the year.
Right.
Well, if the special land use permit isn't valid anymore, then they would have to do like maybe a
But they can come
force
in.
of transfer.
Further reporter, this is Chris Judy, Director of Economic and Community Development. So that I think that having a paper trail is good, but just remember that even a license without a valid special land use permit is still a valid license. There's nothing stopping the owner of that license coming in tomorrow. So that will create a real challenge for us if that ever happened. Not saying that it would. One option could be some form of conditional approval of the marijuana license. That is means that essentially you should have it come back to you again after the expiration date, so that it can finally be 100% verified and continue.
I would add a slight nuance to that, because I literally just wrote conditional approval, though I don't know we've ever done that. Instead of us having it come back before us, we can delegate that as well to the clerk's staff, that once the expiration of the state license has occurred, then they receive a non-conditional license. So, I don't know what the standards would be, though, for us being, do we have the authority to grant a conditional marijuana license?
Through the chair, so we can change condition 4 to say that the license will be issued for such and such time frame, so it will expire maybe like January of 2021, so that December 31st, when the license expires, their conditional license would expire for marijuana, and they'd need to come back. So we could make that as a trigger for them to come back before the assembly to get their next full issuance.
So
I mean, you could do a...
Can't we, though, just add a condition here that essentially states that the clerk is allowed to issue a permanent or whatever, a non-conditional license on the expiration of the liquor license, and we can put that time frame in there so that the conditional license expires the end of January of 2021, but you have the authority, because we'd rather not come back to this question and have to go through this process again, just give you that authority. Doesn't that seem like the reasonable path?
I think we need to do more.
Is he Dean?
That's not a bad idea, but I sort of think we have an annual renewal process. So when we renew the license in September, it's a marijuana license, we would have a check-in on what's going on with that liquor license in the state and so forth. Can we just then renew the license and remove the condition at that time? And the code allows us to modify conditions, add and remove them in renewals.
Issue won't be resolved.
Just a thought.
So the liquor doesn't expire until December 31st.
Yeah, and this marijuana license
This
would come
would
up
be
for renewal
August
September
2020.
2020, September 2021. We would check in both times, September 2021.
So-
remove this simple condition then. Right.
I mean, you would have the 9 months of operation in between when it potentially expired and didn't. So I think that's kind of the gray period of where we're trying to decide of.
Maybe Mr. Constance's idea is more timely. Try to be some person.
I would say, can't we just issue a conditional license, renew a conditional license, and then upon verification after December 31, change it into a non-conditional license? Is that what you were
And
saying?
I think that was what you were saying, yeah.
It just seems like the best path.
Yeah, that seems really, upon verification that the liquor license is expired.
Just delegate the authority, though. It's not really hearing.
Well, it helps us, we acknowledge the issue.
Mhm.
It's pretty much a non-issue, really, because the special land use is expired, correct?
Do we want a factual finding to that effect?
Where would
Somewhere
that
in
go?
to kind of specifically say why we're doing it this way, because that way it makes it very fact specific to this instance where the special land use permit. So it could be that condition could say, to the extent that the special land use permit associated with that active alcohol license has expired, or whatever the proper terms are. I think that's an important finding of fact to put in there.
Where would that go? Is that in the planning report or in our license?
It would go in the planning report. So I think we could have a condition stating that it would be a conditional approval, and it would have to be approved again to remove the condition.
Well, that would be, but I think also the point that the special land use permit has expired.
Yeah, Title 21, you guys are okay since the slump
Yeah.
has expired, so it would be the licensing side.
Our position is that because the slump is expired, from our perspective, they've met the requirement. However, there is this outstanding issue with the state. I think maybe, are you suggesting maybe a finding on the record at the hearing that this is the reason why you're adding this condition? Is that what you're suggesting?
It can either be stated on the record, but I think if it's in the document somewhere, when it comes back up for renewal, then it's still clear, is all I was trying to say. I just want to keep it as streamlined as possible.
Okay.
And also to make sure that the record is really clear that this is why we're deciding this one this way.
Right.
Because there could be other instances where this could come up again and it's different facts and there could be a different outcome.
I think to clarify that, we could also add that language, a little bit of language in the condition, just so it's clear why we're adding the condition to the report. It could be really brief.
Through the chair, I think actually some form of some of the members Alatel's approach is best, whether it's perhaps in an AIM that comes with it. That way the condition is clean and it's not muddled with the explanatory language. It's all in the AIM. You have a record. You can look back to that.
That's in my opinion the right way to do it.
Would it be AIM or AM?
It's an informational.
It's an informational
Just
item.
information.
Okay, who's in the queue here? Dean, did you have more to add?
No, but I was a little confused, I think, about the alcohol conditional use permit for that area, that lot. That's expired now already? Is that what I said?
So the special land use
license
permit.
for the state's still active, but the conditional use permit for alcohol is already expired. Okay. It's clarification.
Okay, I'm sorry, Crystal.
Yeah, just, I guess I'm still kind of hung up on the idea that the owner of the liquor license could still come forward and want to renew that license. The license itself, they would have to have another location, so there would have to be a transfer. But it's still open basically to manipulate in some other way. So I guess that's still my question is, do we need to do something that basically, we don't, I see, I can see, okay,
Well, I would
okay.
just offer that the reason it's different is this application and this owner, that person no longer owns this property and that person no longer has any access to the land on which they had previously operated. And so any transaction that occurs relative to that liquor license is like someone else, some other place, some other time. This applicant and this individual and this location is all germane to this application. And so that license will never darken the door of this piece of land again. Like
Yeah,
it's-
okay, yeah.
There's different people.
So that license is
But
in
they
the
are
cloud?
tied to,
Yes, essentially it is until the end of the year. I can't imagine they won't do a transfer. It's a valuable piece of property.
that's what I was thinking, is they're not going to just give it up.
Right, and that's very valuable, but it's not a matter that concerns these people because there's no way they would give up their massive investment they've just made to do some jujitsu to say, now we're going to be a liquor store. And then go before the assembly, go through the whole change of use process and everything else. That just is not, it's not feasible. Right, and so they're talking about two property interests now, and it's easy to try to think about what happens with that license. In the end, I would bet like you, something's going to happen with that license. It's a $100,000 product, commodity, and so, you know, Dan Coffey is going to show up and try to buy it for someone, you know.
Somebody wants to.
Yeah, it's just going to happen, but that's just, it's,
Okay,
Just try
so
to dot the i's across the
yeah,
t's.
it's good.
let me see if I've got it. So condition, in section 3, condition 7, is that where you would clarify the liquor conditional uses?
So I think 7, there was the talk to clarify adding the change of use approval, but I think under section 2, number 4 is where we will add the AIM to clarify the reasoning for the conditional license. So I don't know, and maybe I'll talk with Dean about it, I don't know that we need to change the language in the AR. Maybe we'll just do an AIM with all of that information and reference condition 4.
So condition 2.4, you refer to the AIM, or we'll just deal with the whole issue in the AIM?
I think just deal with it in the AIM.
Can we do it backwards though? In this number 4, it seems like the condition is, if we're talking about issuing a license for a marijuana establishment, then the condition isn't actually, we will not issue a marijuana establishment license if premises will be located in liquor premises. It's the opposite. We will not issue a liquor license on a licensed marijuana establishment, right? Isn't
that's
that
interesting.
what we're talking about here?
Right.
Because if we do it this way, then we cannot issue the license until it's expired. But if we flip that, then we at once issue the license and at the same time say there will not be an alcohol license operating here.
Interesting. Okay.
And don't we take that maybe a step further and say we also won't approve a special land use permit for alcohol?
Both. You
Yeah,
can list
say
that
them
right
together.
Right.
Yeah.
But I see your point, because now the the special land use permit is gone, the liquor license, but this is still the location on that liquor license.
Right.
So that's a good catch there.
Yeah.
Does anyone disagree? I think we should flip that. Because we're literally talking about doing the opposite of what this says.
Right.
We don't.
So that's how Title 10 is worded, that if there's already a liquor license there, there won't be a marijuana license issued. And even though there's not the special land use permit, like you said, the liquor license is still under that address.
So the AIM needs to finesse around that and say the license may claim that as location, but that location is not valid because the special land use permit's
And that's the
expired.
condition.
I think so.
But I do agree this number 4 needs to change somewhat. Or even, I mean, if you deleted that, it's already in the law, right? I mean, in our code.
Right, right.
So could we delete 4 and just go with the AIM?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Dean. Go ahead.
Well, I just think we should do a little wordsmithing with number 4, but I'm not exactly sure how to phrase it yet. I think though, the liquor license attached to this address isn't going to go away until next year, but we want to issue the marijuana license in the interim. And I don't think this language quite captures that. So we're making sort of an exception to the Title 10 code requirement not to issue. And I think we need to state that a little differently. I can't think of the exact way to phrase it right now, so I can spoke with Mandy to come up with some language. Dave?
If I can ask Dean, if I can ask you a question, would it be okay to delete 4 and then replace it with the AIM?
Well, I think we still need to say we're going to issue the marijuana license, even though the code says we can't, because there's a legal license attached.
Can that be done
So if
through
we
the
just delete
AIM?
4, we wouldn't have to wait until. I think we need to put it in the resolution.
Okay. Mandy, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, I mean, all of the conditions that we list are in code, and I think the ones that we list specifically on the AR are kind of the flags that are the ones specific to this location. So I think for historic purposes of looking back and seeing stuff, these are the things that kind of point out this was kind of an anomaly for this license. So it is nice to have it, even though it is law, it's nice to have it highlighted on the AR for referencing. It kind of just points out that this was an issue that the Assembly knew was an issue and addressed.
Okay.
Dean will wordsmith that.
Okay, so condition 4 will be reworked a bit to acknowledge the issue, and then we'll have an AIM that explains special land use permit's expired. And the license may name this location, but it can't really be used at this location. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay.
We recognize there's the liquor license here, but it's not in operations, and so long as it's not in operations, something like that. We should be marijuana license.
And that may lead us to look at the code and have that language as our conversation there. Make it operational is a word we want to have in our code.
That's the intent.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Maybe we add that to our list, so. Okay, so any more on this? Any other issues on this license? Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I see you have a cultivation facility in Fairbanks?
Yes.
Are you planning to open one down here as well?
No.
All right, thanks.
But, I would add only, if I might, Mr. Chair, that the Fairview Community Council is not objective or supportive of this application.
Okay, good. Do we have a recommendation?
Yes.
Sure, I'll recommend approval
Second.
With the conditions?
with the conditions.
Any objection? Okay, so we are going to rework this a little bit to acknowledge the liquor license and remove that as an obstacle, and then we'll recommend approval with those changes on Tuesday. So I hope we'll be able to make it Tuesday.
Yeah.
Usually it's at the end of the meeting. So
Oh, yeah, I will.
feel free to come early.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see.
All right, thanks.
Sometime between 10 and midnight. That's what we should expect to be.
Okay, so next up is Clear Cut Cannabis. So welcome to sit up here. Okay, Mandy.
Clear Cut Cannabis, this is for a retail license. They were previously named the Vault Cannabis. They submitted a name change, so you may have seen that. They addressed all of their general licensing restrictions in their operating plan. There is a request for a variance, so the license will kind of depend on the approval of the special land use permit in this situation, and that variance approval. There are no taxes, fees, or fines that are found due by any of the licensees or affiliates. The restricted access, security, and safety standards have been addressed in their operating plan. The retail store specific restrictions were also addressed in their operating plan. There weren't any additional recommended conditions for this license, aside from verification of the special land use permit, which those go hand in hand.
Okay, thank you. Colin?
So this is a request for a special land use permit with the variance for a marijuana retail sales establishment within an I-1 industrial district. The site is located southeast of the intersection of Rosewood Street and East 68th Avenue near Old Seward Highway in Anchorage. The proposed establishment will be located within an existing residential use building, which will be converted for commercial purposes. Approximately 519 square feet of available building space will be dedicated to marijuana retail, and the establishment will be open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. until midnight. So more details on the variance request. It's from AMC 2105055A2, separation from protected land uses to encroach within the required separation distance that accompanies this application. This variance request is necessary in this case due to the presence of 3 religious assemblies located 50 feet to the southeast of the petition site, as measured via a straight line from lot line to lot line. The applicant initiated their state marijuana application on October 6, 2017. Thus, the separation distance measurement does apply. So the 3 religious assemblies involved are Barica Church, Unity Spiritual Center of Anchorage, and Church of Scientology. There is actually an image in the staff report showing where those 3 religious assemblies are. Basically, it's a situation where there's a very large lot, and the religious assemblies are located in the far kind of east side of the lot, and the proposed clear-cut cannabis use is located on the other side of the lot. So that proposed marijuana establishment is not visible from the religious assemblies, and Block 1A also, so Block 1A is where the assemblies are. That also houses a variety of uses, including an amusement establishment, vehicle service facilities, general retail, and a building supply store. And as stated, although the lot lines of Block 1A and the petition site are very close, approximately 50 feet apart, the proposed marijuana use and the nearest religious assembly on that large lot are separated by approximately 765 square feet when measured via the shortest practicable pedestrian route. And in general, the large lot size of Block 1A places abutting properties at disadvantage when compared to those that may be located in the subdivision of smaller lots due to the distance covered by one lot line of Block 1A. This is a circumstance similar applicants may not face if they are located within a subdivision with smaller lots which may only accommodate a single use per lot. Otherwise, this use is consistent with the Anchorage 2040 land use plan. The provided site plans do not show any major alterations to the building facade or structure that would make it of the similar character, scale, or size and compared to surrounding structures. And the planning department therefore recommends approval.
Great, thank you. Meg?
So on the variance, if I go back to the last variance we considered, the condition about not being detrimental to the public welfare, injurious to other property in the area, I think was one that was supposed to, when we got into a juggernaut last time, that it couldn't ever be met. And now it's met. So I need some reconciliation with kind of the statement from the planning department previously that like we don't, that you had to, like, it was one that you couldn't almost show because you had to be like in the negative. And now we're saying it's met. So why is it particularly met here when we had that idea that, well, we don't know if it will ever be detrimental to the public welfare. We don't know.
I think, Dave, with the planning department, I think the difference between this situation and the last is its physical separation from the actual use itself. So you've got a large lot, you've got the building and separation distance between the marijuana facility and that religious assembly as being the unusual circumstance here. We don't believe that, so I think from a practical perspective, the separation distance is met. Unfortunately, there's a large lot that doesn't allow us to meet the separation distance lot line to lot line. So I think the two circumstances are different. If I can point your attention to the Great Northern Cannabis example on Diamond, where they had a similar situation where they had a large lot directly across Diamond that they had to deal with. This is a very similar situation to that. Now, they chose in that situation to replat in lieu of a variance. This applicant has chosen to go for a variance.
Okay, if I may. So the facts, though, specifically under B, talk about traffic, though, unfortunately. They don't talk about that separation distance. I mean, it is above in terms of why it doesn't violate state law or regulation, but if we're going to make very specific factual, if it's factually based, I think we need the facts in the planning report that support specifically why it is, because I think that's where these are going to turn on, and I want these to be really tight, because I think as we get more and more establishments, we're going to be having more and more variances, and so I think that the records need to be extremely clean. So I don't know to what extent we can make sure that that is why there is no detriment to the public welfare or it's not injurious to other property in the area. Traffic is one thing, but the idea before, as stated by the planning department, was just kind of the idea was that the existence of it was injurious. And you had to prove it in the negative when we talked about the one downtown.
Yeah, so through the chair, they're definitely different. Are you asking for more detail to the staff packet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So the reasons
Again,
Dave just stated.
So the staff packet's done. We wouldn't amend the staff packet so much as we would put it into the AO.
I believe so.
We can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. So we can add that clarity and that detail. It wouldn't be through the staff packet since that's already a done deal. But we could do it through the AO. AR. Sorry, AR. Thank you.
Yeah, because that's the squishiest one of the variances.
I agree with Ms. Salatal. The resolution here, it simply says that the application of the variance is approved, but it's assigned conclusory, and the code here for variances in 2103, 105, C11, just they simply decides the variance is part of the application, and this says approved. I think you need findings about the standards for granting variance. And we have that in the staff packet. We have a statement that says the assembly finds that these are met as well, and I think we should have that in the resolution document. I think that's very important, especially to protect against an appeal of complaints, maybe not from the licensee, but from other people in the area who just don't like marijuana licenses, you know. And I think that the way to address that is just add a new section here, section 8, new section 8 to 9. in section 8, just saying assembly is, reviewed the staff packet, and we've looked at this, and we find that it doesn't violate state law, and then just sort of being in a short manner the standards for granting the variance. I think just one section addressing that assembly finds this is met. It's not detrimental because what the staff, as the staff's analysis, we agree with it and so forth. I think that would suffice, but it needs to be in the resolutions.
I'm sorry, where would that be, Dean?
I would make section 8 a 9 in the new section 8 that just says that. Unless you disagree, you don't think the standards are met.
So, okay, so section 8 will have findings on why the variance would be allowed, and that would be, I think there are,
Yeah,
I think you outlined them fairly clearly.
what we will do is we'll restate the standards for variance, and then we'll make them findings in section 8, and we'll bolster that one with respect to injuries to the corporate.
And you could simply reference the staff analysis. If the assembly members don't have anything else to add other than staff analysis, you can refer to it. The assembly finds the staff's report and analysis is accurate, correct, and we agree with it. So forth. That the standards is met.
May I ask, Meg, would you prefer to have that each one addressed in section 8, or would you prefer us to just reference the staff report? Because at this point, as Chris mentioned, we can't really amend the staff report to deal with that situation, so.
I'm going to think about it for a second.
If I might, Mr. Chair, I think that there's no problem, at least from a customs, what we've done in the past, just amending the document itself and adding in our own language, which would be, we find that the specifics. So it's a simple finding. I don't think we need it in the staff report, although having the staff draft the content would be very helpful. I think we can get there by amending.
Well, it's not uncommon in these things say, our findings are we accept staff for a rezone or something, we incorporate the staff findings. So in this case, we would, perhaps that section would say incorporate staff findings, and in addition, I think that section 4 needs to be embellished somewhat by the points that you made.
Okay.
So we could incorporate your findings in the staff report plus just embellish it. Is
that works?
Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, thank you.
And when we did the 200 foot, it was mostly to prevent, where someone could have been right across the street. You have a church and you have a marijuana shop, and that would blow some people's minds. So we didn't want that. But, effectively this it's totally out of sight. It's not even on the travel path. If you're going to the church, you're not going by this. You would likely never know it was there if you went to that church every day or any of those three. So it meets the leisure custom. So it meets I think the intent of that 200 foot very well. The GNC was interesting because I've been thinking back on that. They chose not to go with variance. It's a very similar issue. Even more because it's a huge highway, essentially, a diamond in between the
I think
two
with Great Northern, they didn't like, they wanted the security of the replat rather than going through the variance. So they saw that as a clear-cut, path to yes. So.
And I recall in our discussion, I think partly because there was not uniform commitment to giving the variance at that one. So
we don't even have that today, though. I mean, anything could happen, I suppose. And so that's, not given, it's a risk, if I might. Please. For the purposes of our later discussion now, this raises the question that maybe we need to look at our separations for multiple use lots and just add a conversation about how we can reasonably address these very large pieces of property 1,000 feet away the corner of the lot from the use, So maybe that's an element we add to our conversation.
Good point, Pete. Sorry to ignore you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, actually, as the crow flies, how far are the religious assemblies from this location? Is it 700 feet,
Almost 800 feet.
almost 800 feet.
Like if you,
But it's fairly direct, actually.
Door to door.
did you mean door to door, not to the building, right?
Oh, well, I mean, as the crow flies, if you flew kitty-cornered from there to there, I mean, it's way over 200 feet, right?
It's like over almost 800 feet, maybe a little bit
The
over.
walking route's almost 800, so the crow
Yeah.
flying would be probably around 700 feet.
Yeah, okay.
700, 800.
Yeah, the walking distance is exactly 765.
And that's kind of including jaywalking.
Yeah,
68.
cutting across the private property.
And if I could follow up, and so do these religious assemblies know that you've applied for a marijuana license?
So we've done all the notice and we've sent them, because they've been included in our 500-foot buffer, so we've sent them mailers, and you guys have sent them mailers too, and he's actually attended 2 community councils, because when we changed the name, we wanted to go back to the community council and make sure they didn't have a problem with the name, and they have not objected to date.
Right, Ryan confirmed that he hasn't heard anything from them.
Interesting. Okay. And then on a separate subject, so there's residences in this building, and are some of the employees planning to live there, or what's up with that?
Yeah, it's kind of a existing triplex. So the marijuana store is going to be the single use, kind of standalone. And then beside it there's a duplex, an up and down unit. And so the intent with that is to keep at least one of those units available for caretaker or the owner, and then probably use the other one as storage.
Yeah, so Noah's owned this property for about a decade, and so historically he's rented these units out, and so there's 2 tenants in there right now. They know what's going on. They know that once the store is getting open, they're going to need to move, and then, like he said, he might put a caretaker in there that's also going to be employed, obviously, at the retail shop.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is that the issue then, that the caretaker is on the property or in the building?
I thought it was the parcel.
I believe it's the parcel.
On the parcel, so it's not just a building. So you understand the limitations there on anybody who would be a resident, would have to have some affiliation with the business?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be employed by the business, yeah.
Would not be a rental.
Have you knocked on the door of these churches and said hello?
No, because it's 700 feet down the road to the east, if you're looking at the Seward Highway. And then the building that they're in, they're all the way around on the kind of southeast corner of the building. So it's almost like they're in a different town. It's that far away in how it feels. I don't think, and a lot of people access that business park by coming off Dowling down, I think it's Brayton Drive, the frontage road. And then they come in there.
Well, I see that. What seems reasonable to one person often isn't to the next person. And you've kind of gone through the formal process, and it sounds like very well. But if they show up on Tuesday and have some thoughts about this that are different than yours, you have an issue. It might be good to go say hello to them. Prior to that?
I don't know, I would add a dissenting opinion to that. If you've sent them mail, they've sent them mail, and it's not been received, I don't know that if I had a business interest, I would go kick a hornet's nest.
Well, we didn't
Just in
get,
time.
we sent them a personal letter inviting them to the community council meeting, and it didn't get kicked back to us, so I would assume they got it.
Snooze, you lose.
I just,
Sort of, we'll see. I mean,
That's a
sounds.
hard line, but.
Yes.
Are there other marijuana establishments nearby?
Within 1,000 feet, there's Babylon, which is a manufacturing license. Thanks.
Is it, oh, sorry.
I don't think there's anything else, Colin. Is
I'm
it?
looking, I
Is
don't
it on
believe
the
so.
same street?
It's on Rosewood. It's kitty corner.
Okay, thanks. They were, I think Babylon was before January 2017 though. So I think so. Yeah, they were one of the first. And so I think they were here before that 200-foot crow's one.
Okay, so anything else on this, Chris?
I think it's personally very interesting and raises again the spectrum that we should look more closely at our code on this.
Yeah.
The separation. But otherwise, I don't have any position.
Okay, any recommendation?
Move to recommend approval.
And that's with the changes in the variance discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Any opposition?
There is 1,000.
Okay, so do you understand on Tuesday, so we'll recommend approval with these changes we've discussed. Booster the case for the variance. Thank you. Hope to see you Tuesday.
I would use a different word.
No.
It's like 1,000.
Just to the
We can, this is for
Eagle River.
so it has to be laid on the table. As for so we'll prep it, but we'll give it to you to coordinate with the separate plans.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you have the S version, send it to that IMS agenda.
There, she has it, there's an extensive.
Sign me up.
Okay, so the next thing is discussion on topics for possible updates to our marijuana code. And we've got a couple things in front of us. One is the state of Alaska marijuana regulation changes over the past.
Through the chair, I'm just going to kind of for the recording, we had spoke to the planning department. Item B on the agenda, we learned recently, so it's still here. It needs to be pulled, but the variance itself isn't going to be before the assembly when the planning department thought it was. If there's specific questions, Chris or Dave can answer those.
Thanks, I skipped right over that.
So just to explain the situation here, Vertical Bridge is applying to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a conditional use permit to essentially replace the existing 280-foot tower. They had a hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission Monday night. They postponed that case for a month because they had questions of the applicant that couldn't be answered that night. So in consideration of the variance before the assembly, it doesn't seem appropriate that you guys act on the variance when the conditional use permit has not been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's why we're asking to remove it.
Okay, refresh my memory too. Where's this tower? This is the one
Right
next
Right
door?
over here, you can see it outside.
Oh, it's right over here.
Yeah.
Okay. And it would be to replace the tower, so it's a taller tower.
Taller or same?
Same height.
Same height, but a different tower that would accommodate co-location so that we don't build more towers.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we do? Any objection to that? Just pulling that from the agenda? Or I guess we covered it. Now we move on. Come back to it again, right? Thanks for. Okay, so now on to C in proper order. Discussion of various update changes. Broadly, this is a response. Now we've got a year or so of looking at these things. We've stumbled over a few issues, and we've seen some opportunities. And, we just want to take another look, maybe or maybe not make some changes. We've got in front of us State of Alaska marijuana regulation changes that are somewhat recent that we'll go over. Some of these we may want to incorporate in our code and others not. Mandy prepared some examples of other jurisdictions in Alaska and what they do. We have something that is largely, over time, I've just been keeping some little notes on some issues, and so it's sort of a brainstorming list. And I wouldn't even say I put stuff down there that I may not even agree with. It was just stuff that had come up, so I put down there.
Did you make that a middle?
Yeah, it's floating around.
It's this, it's marijuana issues to address. And so that's an active list. That's just me with a Word document writing stuff down over time, and I think we might have added something. I sent it to Mandy. And then there was a request, just a comment, I think, from a operator who said maybe we should consider 1,000-foot separation around existing marijuana operations, and someone in the planning department made this map to show what that would look like at this point. So it's just purely informational, and what we would like to the industry people here is if you've got issues as well, to kind of add them to the mix and say, this is not working, this could be improved, and just make this fairly comprehensive. And this could be a many months process too. This is just kicking it off. Let's look where we land. And we may do a whole bunch at once. We may do a little bit. And I'll go to Forrest, but also are there things, to Dave, are there things that you're already working on?
We are. Yeah, we've got an ordinance that you guys will be seeing here shortly, separate from this, but another ordinance to deal with some of the issues that we're seeing, particularly with respect to signage in marijuana.
Could you sit up here as we discuss it? So Colin left and Dave Whitfield is joining the table. Okay, so Dave, can we have Dave continue? Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
What's your schedule for that? And are we overlapping? Are we going to bump into each other on things?
I think what we would like to do, the planning department would like to keep the two issues separate. So consider the ordinance that's going to be in front of you here shortly. I think it just got put into pace, so you should be seeing that shortly. But to keep these two issues separate, I think, or at least to be clear, let's get through the ordinance that we have coming for you, and then establish a new ordinance to deal with the issues that we're discussing here today.
Did you go through these documents?
No, I haven't, honestly.
Okay, because it would be, we haven't seen what you're working on, but if you see someone here and say, okay, that's in that ordinance, just let us know.
Right.
And then, so it is sort of fine at that point. So if it's in pace, that means it's introduced on the 28th?
If it is currently.
If it's in pace, it would be introduced on the 14th for action on the 28th.
Oh, Tuesday.
Potentially, right?
No. Introduced. Pace deadline for the 28th is next Friday.
Oh, next Friday. So it's not in pace right now.
No, I should be going into pace this week.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
What's our schedule for our meetings though for this month?
We have one. We have another meeting scheduled for the end of the month. And I think the only item on there so far is the brown jugs. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm looking at Mandy.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Forrest?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we could add something to this list. I know you saw it running Word doc, but Meg just reminded me of it. So I'm trying to remember the specifics of the issue, but when Canabasca, what was it, Canabasca or the different name? When the whole thing we just went through at the Hope Center, it seemed like the variance language was, Alaska Sense, thank you, the language, the variance language was written in such a way where it was basically impossible to reach. Now, it appears we have reached one on a different license. Perhaps there's been an administrative change, or perhaps it's some different variance requirement. But I remember a very specific issue being raised during that discussion, and I wanted to have us address that via ordinance to make it so. Again, it was like this weird catch-22 where it was basically impossible for at the time Michelle McNulty to grant a variance. So I'd like to reopen that language.
Okay. You want to proceed? I suppose the cleanest thing would be go to the states, and you've gone through the different state items, Mandy.
Sure, I can go over that. So some of these we've already done. This is just a comprehensive list of all of the changes that the state has made. So if you look on page 2, I guess starting February 21st, end of page 1, there's more detail on what the changes are. That's kind of where we need to pick up and start integrating into our code to match the states. So I kind of went through with all of the state references and did a little summary of what their changes were. Some of these we won't need to incorporate because they don't apply to us, but some of them we'll need to, and this was kind of just a starting point of the conversation for us to add to the bigger one. So we already did the endorsement language, the April 11th. This is the on-site consumption. So that's done. but the other ones we're gonna need to go through and add in. And this will just be kind of the routine cleanup.
So all of April 11.
Yep, April
that was-
11th is done. That was done when we incorporated the on-site consumption language.
So May 1st, license renewal fees, that's not really us.
Right, right, yeah, and I did in parentheses, that's what it pertains to, and so most of those aren't gonna apply to us, that's state stuff. So really, I think the biggest ones are gonna be February 21st, going through those, and just kind of cleaning up some of our code to be consistent with the state.
So there's quite a bit here.
They're all based on this license conversion.
Yeah, go ahead, Crystal.
So Mandy, just looking at it real quickly, it looks like there's just a lot of language changes for this whole concept of license conversion.
Yeah.
So what is that? Do you know?
They added a new type of application that's a conversion, and Jenna might be able to talk about what it is.
They don't really deal with that.
It's not, no.
You actually would deal with it because it would go from taking a limited cultivation to a standard. Are you talking about the
We
conversion?
don't, yeah, we don't deal with that. So we don't
Wouldn't
have.
that be a muni modification because it would be increasing?
We don't offer limited.
So
We
we do have the limited, it would be a Title 21. So I don't know if they've already
Yeah, it
done
would
it,
be
but
a
it
mod-
wouldn't be Title 10, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
Title 10, I'm sorry, yeah, but it would be a modification.
Right.
Okay, so I
you guys
still
just said.
don't know what we're talking about.
And then will the other, okay, so it would be going
Can
to.
you, why don't you, for the tape, Jenna?
Sure, Jana Weltzine. So the conversion for the cultivation would be going from a limited cultivator to a standard. So going from 500 square feet limit of cultivation to unlimited. So that's one type of conversion. The other type of conversion would be, take Babylon, which is a concentrate company, taking them into like Great Northern's manufacturing, which is all sorts of products, edibles and chocolates and all this stuff. So it would be a lot of DHHS stuff, and then also the muni modifications with Title 21.
Sir, what was that second? If you're a
So-
manufacturer, you're a manufacturer.
Nope, so there's two different types of manufacturing licenses. One is a concentrate only, and that's a $1,000 fee to the state of Alaska, and you can only produce what's made from the plant. You can't add any ingredients. So you can only do, like, shatter, waxes, vape pens, assuming that you don't put anything that's not derived from the plant into that vape pen, which needs to be looked at a lot more closely. But then you can convert it and go up to a full product manufacturing and do your chocolates, your salves, your everything.
Okay, so can I?
Yeah, please.
So right now, we don't do any of that in the municipality. Everything we do is the limited?
So we do, for the license, we do have the limited cultivation and the cultivation, but it's more for the planning department for the special land use permit. The license itself, we only have the 4 types, which is the testing, the manufacturing, cultivation, and retail. So for the licensing portion, we don't really separate the types. The special land use permit, dealing with the size and all of that, would be. So we
Yeah, so what-
wouldn't under Title 10, but it would under Title 21.
What Jenna is suggesting is that if they do change, they have to come back to the planning department under Title 21 to modify their license.
Yeah, and I would just recommend that all the, local government notice, the community council notices, and a community council meeting would be proper, I would think, but it's just my opinion.
Okay, but the point is, they're adding a new form, so
Yes.
we should consider some process for that, and that's what you offer.
That's what I would advocate is, you'd want to know, just like if you added a new process for extraction, we're supposed to come back to the muni and run that through planning department and get approval for that. It's a modification.
So I just need to go backwards a couple steps to this limited license, or it's not a license, I guess. So the state does offer a limited license, right?
Correct.
Which is, but we don't really offer those. We just offer the standard license, but so what I'm understanding is under our land use, we essentially allow for a less restrictive review process for a very small operation under Title 21. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Yeah, because understood that we did not opt into the limited. We didn't want to see 500-foot operations showing up in sections of town all over the place.
But we did, because Bill Russell's in Indian is a 500-foot.
Okay, you definitely have them.
We allow them.
But it's not done under the license rules of the limited, right? I'm trying to understand what's going
for
on.
Title 10, we don't separate it out like the state did with the limited cultivation and then cultivation. We just have a cultivation.
Right.
So limited and standard for the license are reviewed the same for those requirements. For the special land use permit, they're reviewed differently. So the difference between the standard cultivation and a limited cultivation comes through in the special land use permit review. And that's the size for cultivation. For the product manufacturing, that falls more on the health department's reviews. But for the licensing portion, there's not a difference in the review process of what's required for like safety.
So what's the difference on the land use side of the review for a limited versus a standard?
Boy, go ahead.
I was just going to say just the size under cultivation. I would say that's the main difference.
But do we have a minimum size?
No, we have a maximum for limited cultivation, and maximum is 500 feet under cultivation.
No, I understand that, but what's the difference functionally, right? So why would we make that distinction? What's the benefit? What's the cost or consequence of having the difference of the two? It's really just the same thing on both sides.
We don't, the state does.
Yes.
We don't make that difference in Muni. We've just clumped them together.
This is so bizarre.
So does this impact us then? Are we going to have to change part of our process?
I think it's kind of already covered with the requirement for a modification.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I would just want to make sure that the community councils get noticed if somebody in their community is going from a 500 square foot facility to a unlimited. I mean, I think the community council needs to.
But don't we do that 10% or whatever the number
Yeah,
is?
I mean,
of
you would-
change
you
is
would
gonna
do that.
mandatorily trigger
Right.
Right.
the thing. So if you're at
That's exactly
500 and you go to 550, suddenly, you're going for a dance with the community council.
Yeah, so I
We
mean,
did this recently, didn't we? Because one in Indian changed his status,
Right.
I think through the state, so it came back to us.
Yeah.
And was that just because of an increase in?
correct. So.
Did he increase the area of the building he's using?
Right, so we determine whether or not the modification is minor or major, and then we respond accordingly, and there's a threshold for that, as Chris mentioned. So that's really the issue from the planning department's perspective. We don't really see a difference between limited and regular. So we just look at it from, what is your operation? Are you modifying your operation, and to what extent?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks.
No difference.
Jana, are you saying that when someone does a conversion application with the state, that do you want there to be some check at the municipal level to make sure we're good to go? Or are you just saying that you want to make sure there's a clear process so that they are doing the modification?
Yeah, I'm just, so for the cultivation, it's a little bit easier because 10%, then 10%, and if they're going bigger, then they send out the mailers. For product manufacturing, it might be a little bit less clear. And so what I'm saying, just a clear understanding that no matter what the conversion is, probably needs to be triggering the community councils, because for product manufacturing, going from a concentrated product manufacturing, that line of what's that muni modification, it's not a change in square footage, and maybe it's not even a change in extraction process, but it's an additional whole line of products. And I don't see that in the code where that gets
But you would have to
triggered
apply for that to the state, and they would send that
to
notice
you.
to us.
And then I'm saying you need to notify the community council is
They
what I
do
would.
too.
They-
The state does
yeah.
also, but
And so not require us to go to the community council and have a meeting? Because
Okay, I'm good.
that's my
a
only
good
that's my
question.
only like little part is
That's a gray area.
yeah.
I just want to.
Well, I think Andy's right. We don't have for our municipal license any process to change that type of conversion issue. But I think we do have, from the state regulations, a local government protest process to the state conversion license. So we might have some reaction for that, or just waiving the protest. So I think that's something that we do have the ability to act on, or should act on, or have some process for responding to opportunity to protest the state license, conversion license application, because we don't have any other similar process at our licensing level locally.
That's important, yeah, thank you. Chris?
So, just to reiterate, functionally, there's no difference in analysis at the licensing or the land use level at the muni right now. All of these fall under one broad array. So, maybe it raises the question, we want to do something more. I don't know why we want to create more bureaucracy, but that would allow these smaller operations some more flexibility. I don't know if we would or not, but it's definitely an interesting area of consideration.
Mandy?
So I don't know that any change really is necessary. They're kind of reviewed the same way, whether it's a product manufacturing or an extraction only facility. The health department gets notice of that review. If it's extraction only, they do review for that portion of it. If it's product manufacturing, then they do a more extensive review for the kitchen compliance, for health standards and this, and so
That's the DEC. Not us.
Oh, sorry, yeah, DEC.
So we don't do manufacturing. We're not. That's not a delegable authority. So the state controls that.
That's Jeff Hickman. Would you like to sit up here in case it's...
But so there is some difference in the review process based off of what they are, whether they're the full product or not, but they all have the option of doing that review. They just say whether it's applicable to that review or to that application or not.
Okay, Dean?
I just had another thought here. The resolutions we approve for our municipal license and our special land use permit, and both of those sections are template that we have. The language says the licensee employee shall conform to the narrative submitted, the license special land use permit application. So if we have a conversion action at the state level, but nothing at a muni level, they change the whole process. It no longer conforms to our license and the narrative plan submitted with our municipal license. So we need to have some way, I think, to take their change and update our municipal license. Somehow, I don't think we need like an employer, well, I'm not sure, but it's something we should think about, maybe with the code change, to address that.
So for the renewals, there is the portion that requires any changes. So it might be something we can just clarify under Title 10 in that section, that if there's a conversion, that'll be reported to the assembly with their renewal.
Yeah, that
could be an option.
You don't need to get ensconced in that whole conversion issue.
And then it would still go before the assembly.
Yeah. Maybe just a
Okay, so basically keep it simple, something. We're getting close to the end here. We haven't really touched on this much. I would actually look for some wording as when we meet again on this, is maybe provide that. So is there any more on state changes then? Is that all of the February 21st issue?
There's just a few bits here and there where we'd need to update our language to match. There's some definitions that they added clarification on, and we can do that. But it's kind of more just a cleanup.
Is that something you're prepared to write up then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay?
That looks like just Title 10
Yes.
definitions.
Yeah.
But you don't feel like there's any Title
I don't,
21 change?
yeah, looking at this, I don't see anything from Title 21.
So at some point, it's future meeting, have
Can
that.
bring language for state updates.
So I would say that there's nothing that's really a big red flag for us right now. I mean, I was looking at the one from August that says license denial, so they're not adding another criteria on there. Okay.
They're just clarifying with stuff, yeah.
So I guess a discussion now. Is there any, did you want to speak on something?
I just had a question for Wendy. Thank you. There's nothing in here, unless I missed it, about what to do when a business is wrapping up, is there? The state still hasn't dealt with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When business is what?
Wrapping up their operations. So, okay. So I was kind of hoping they would, but.
So how do we want to proceed on this? I mean, we're looking, we haven't gotten far today. Is put it off to another meeting. I don't know if the next one doesn't have a huge agenda, so it might be 2 weeks from now.
Maybe, if I might, we contemplate a different structure for a meeting where we do more of a roundtable kind of charrette style conversation. How can we improve the process? How can we be better? Maybe a little more invitation of folks to come to the table, maybe even sitting around on the walls or something. So we have a really in-depth conversation about what we do instead of just biting off on these bits as we go. Let's really talk through the licensing process as it has developed and evolved and where we want to go. So instead of being so rigid, and then we can bring the outcomes of those conversations back to this table for analysis and input.
Yeah, I'd like to have active input from the industry. I mean, if anyone knows the issues. Is there, do you have a convention coming up in Anchorage that we can piggyback on? Or
Convention,
can we make this easy for everyone?
No, we're all going to Juneau in like 2 weeks for the control board hearing. I mean, we could put something together, or we could just blast the, if you had an actual meeting and wanted us to blast it out, we could get AMIA to blast it out, I'll blast it out, and get more people to come.
And community councils and others. Right.
Yeah.
Is there grumblings in the industry? Oh, we're tripping over the stupid little things that needs to change? Or?
I've got a little list. So, I mean, the home addresses issue, that I've been harping on that for a long time. The fact that we're just continuing to put the home addresses out there to the public, and I know that there's concerns, but there's still no banking access, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any banking access anytime soon, so people are storing this stuff at their house, and that's, problematic. The caretaker issue, I think maybe it could be an administrative process to consider whether it's okay to have residential on the same parcel. Maybe not necessarily in the same building as the marijuana establishment, but some of these parcels are quite large in Anchorage and have multi-uses, and it kind of, restricts a person's ability to utilize it or makes them do a little workaround, and that's sometimes difficult. One thing that maybe you really want to keep an eye on is this hemp state registration is going to be coming up, and that means retail registration as long as distributors registration, and that's going to affect a ton of these marijuana shops. So I don't know if the city has looked at that at all, but I can get with Mandy and send her some info, from the hemp site.
You're talking industrial hemp?
I'm talking about our Alaska Hemp program is going to require retail registration.
Oh, really?
And so I didn't.
Yeah.
So it's the rules are going through the final legal review process, but essentially it's going to have to be some kind of endorsement, like where do you get your hemp products from? Have they been tested? Here's the criteria of the testing that needs to be done before you can actually sell it from a retail establishment, and then the retail establishments themselves need to go through a registration process. So right now, we just kind of have everybody and their mom selling CBDs.
CBD oil?
From anywhere, and we don't really know where it's from. And there's been quite a few class action cases that are popping their heads up in the lower 48, and it's only a matter of time before it gets here. So
it's still illegal. CBD is illegal.
Well, people are giving it to their babies and pets, and they're probably making
everything else. But we can't control it. It's too much.
Well, it's actually only illegal if there's not a Farm Bill compliant hemp program in the state, and that's what we're developing now. And so we're developing it, and I talked to Ms. Joan Wilson, who's the Assistant Attorney General for the hemp program, and she anticipates the rules being finalized and stamped by February, and so rolling this out pretty quickly. And so I've been kind of behind the ball on it myself, and so I just wanted to put that in your ears. And then,
Thanks. Can we
I have a question.
One other thing was.
On that topic.
Sorry, let's go.
Okay, go ahead.
So, are you anticipating then that the licensed operations will have to have an endorsement from the state, and then am I getting the implication is that we should contemplate a similar endorsement that at our?
I don't know if you need to do a duplicate endorsement, because I don't think you do for tobacco. I just think it's something that you're going to have to be aware of when you're doing your process. I mean, I don't even know if you want to include it. Like, if they're going to sell CBD products, do they warrant that they're going to get a hemp registration, be compliant? I mean, I don't know. It's just something to think about, and the rules aren't finalized yet, so I haven't even seen the final packet.
Okay, so we're not sure, but it may require some modification, whether it's de minimis or substantive. We can discuss later. Okay.
Thank you. Give her last point.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to get your last point?
The only other one is, with these variances, and I don't know how many more you're going to see, but it seems like the planning department does a lot of work, and, I had a client that got did an administrative variance for a dumpster enclosure, and it was $3,700 or something like that, and the variance fee for a marijuana establishment is $0. So I don't know if there's a way to, those variances for the dumpster enclosure and stuff are extraordinary. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to kind of offset those kinds of really useful variances. And so I don't know. It's just something to think about. It's just something to think about. It seems like you guys put a lot of work and time.
Thank you.
I mean, it does. It seems like it's a ton of work and time.
I think the intent behind the fee, the lack of fee for variance in this case was because it was being considered at the same time that the special land use permit was being.
I guess it kind of more highlights my point of the extraordinary expense of the administrative fees for these little, for the dumpster enclosures and stuff like that. So I didn't know if we could maybe.
I think you need to get in line with that one.
Well,
that's.
I think the point there is let's review the fines and fees and everything that's related to this in the context of this overall conversation. And we've talked about making it so that there are escalating penalties for violations, and maybe there are some other ways we can change that section. That's a topic that we should add as a major branch of the review.
You do have it on your list.
That's all I have right now.
So that was, thank you so, Crystal.
Well, I did want to talk a little bit about this, our list.
We're
We have to-
running
we
out of
have
time.
I know, but I just,
The mayor's office.
just the comment that I think something we could knock out pretty relatively quickly is that idea of what kind of criteria can we set by which we decide to hold a review, a renewal, sorry. So that's kind of our process and what
We have a work session coming up on the 17th with the whole body about the CEDC review process as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
To the chair, isn't that more of a
But
101 session?
I thought that was
Explain to other members
information
how it
for
works?
us, yeah.
but I think it'll inform that conversation is what I guess I'm saying.
Not that one.
No, I mean, it's all tied together, I guess, one way or another. But I was just wanting to say that I think this is something that we could probably just knock out ourselves relatively quickly. There ought to be, we should be able to identify red flags that make us want to review a particular renewal. And that way we've got it written in some kind of code process.
I would like to know for the record that Ms. Kennedy is expressing wild optimism in how fast we can do that.
That's simple. Sorry.
I am always optimistic.
Okay, so I think we have to wrap up. So the others who came, I appreciate your coming. You didn't get a chance to speak, but we're going to be walking through this and getting ideas. So if you guys have ideas, send them to Mandy, like things you've tripped up over. And no, this is very, very early stages here. So if you want, Jeff?
We didn't get to the back part of the page that has my name on it. I have this stuff, I could just pass this out and you guys could
Is
have
it,
it. I gave the part about the smoking ordinance update.
Oh, is
It's on page 2 of your list there. Right there, like the fourth dot on the back page.
Yes.
So I can pass this out and you guys could have it. I sent this a while ago, but it's probably been almost a year, so.
Okay, thank you. And Jeff, so do you have things for the health department that we?
Well, on your list there about making the smoking ordinance match the state ordinance, because we're far off now that they've introduced their own ordinance. There's some things that just don't line up anymore, where we're far less strict than what the state requires. Yeah, so that's what I'm passing out there. There's my list, my comparison list of things that we're more strict on and things we're less strict on. So.
Good comparison.
And that's the major stuff. There's probably other things that are more minor, but I just put the bigger ones in there.
That's kind of a separate.
Yeah, it is. So let's do that.
Okay. All right, so is that a wrap? Thanks, everyone.